Welcome to the Unconversations podcast. I'm Dr. Alison. If you're all about comfort zones and sticking to the status quo, this is not your show. Each episode features global CXOs, founders, and industry innovators sharing untold stories of challenging norms, redefining leadership while transforming lives and industries. You'll hear how adversity became an advantage and how the unconventional path led to an unshakable sense of purpose. And don't miss the Unword Effect, where guests reveal 3 powerful unwords that shaped their journey. These words aren't just a creative twist, they offer a lens into the evolution of a leader. Thanks for tuning in to the Unconversations podcast. I'm Dr. Alison, and today's insight could shift the way you lead. Our guest, Adriana Ocampo Senior, is a seasoned Latina Aerospace engineer with over 30 years of experience in the field where few women and even fewer Latinas rise to leadership. Recruited at 21 by a company which later became Boeing, she led global operations and strategy before launching her own firm, Transcend Influence Ascend, aka TIA, where Adriana empowers minority-owned and women-owned businesses to pursue and secure contracts. She's also an author and champion of legacy building. So fasten your seatbelts. This is a journey, soaring with purpose. Let's take off. Adriana, thank you so much for joining us today. I am so grateful to have you on this podcast.
No, and thank you again for the opportunity to be here. Like you said, we had this connection from the moment that we met at one session that we both attended at SMU, and I got really excited when you told me about this podcast, and I'm very excited and actually very honored to be here. So looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you. I really appreciate you saying that so much. You and I met a few times, and as I like to do with all of my speakers, as a way to get to know their amazing background and their amazing leadership. And I use this process in my executive coaching with my CEOs and leaders. And first of all, I want to tell you that you took this extremely seriously, and you wrote so many amazing words, and even took it a step further and even defined those words on how they relate to you from not only you as a person, but professionally, and even a bit of a combination. And I even got such a greater in-depth understanding of who you are. And one of the things that brought out of that is we couldn't narrow it down to 3. And we tried really hard to do so. And I know we'll probably throw some other ones in there. But first, I would love if you could talk about what your particular process was. What was your internal process when I asked you to think of yourself with words that begin with "on"?
So you and I had this conversation, and first I thought, oh, what an interesting concept. Because what came to mind when you were talking about unconventional, when I thought of "on" first, to me had a negative connotation. Mm-hmm. And when I think of myself, I don't think of myself as a negative person at all. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to change the narrative and the concept of the "on" to be a negative word to a positive word, right? So I thought, okay, let's think about "on" as something positive. And if I were to do that, what would be then those words that identify me or that I can relate to and describe me that are actually positive, that I can relate to, and that could have a very positive, provocative conversation or drive a provocative conversation. And then I start writing those down, thinking about my journey, my career, my life, both personal and professional. And so that's how I came up. And like you said, I actually came up with like 6 of them. And then why they describe me And then I sent those to you, and then we had a few conversations, and then we decided then to narrow those down to the three that probably describe me the best, or that could probably lead us to more deep down conversations that the audience would be interested in.
Thank you for sharing that, because that was the reason why I came up with working with my clients from an perspective, because we tend to describe ourselves using very similar words. And I felt using the perspective and having someone kind of trick the mind a little bit in thinking about ourselves and how we describe ourselves in a very different way. And it's very interesting. And this is a whole purpose of why I came up that, and you made my point beautifully by saying it, was those unwords tend to have a negative connotation to them. Or as we're describing, that is used to describe something negative. And there's a lot of words that begin with that are, as you said beautifully, they're powerful.
Mhm.
And it's getting sort of the brain to think about yourself in a different way. So I appreciate you sharing that, because that was the whole purpose of um, why I decided to come up with this concept, and to have my speakers start off that way in our podcast. So what was the first word that you would like to start with?
So the first word that I would like to start with is unstoppable.
Perfect.
And so the reason why I selected this particular word was because I think it reflects my drive and persistence, especially when I'm pursuing my passions, or even when I'm overcoming challenges. Um, to me, I think being unstoppable shows that I don't back down easily, and I'm really willing to go the extra mile when I want to achieve my goals. So I think this is one word that describes me very well.
And how are you able to share with us sort of an example of why that word really resonated with you so much?
Yeah, I can tell you an example of right now, but I'll give you three examples from my childhood to an example of today.
And
I'm
I
the only,
appreciate, because because I've talked with you, I have a bit more in depth knowledge of why that word unstoppable
yeah,
means so much to you personally,
yeah,
and then how it evolved even stronger professionally. And that's why I wanted to ask you that
yeah.
question, because I
And
think it speaks a lot to your leadership.
yeah, and I want to do this also for the audience, because as you were, like reading my bio, right? It talks about all the positive, and people can go, wow, how beautiful. And I don't want to make this conversation about Adriana and how great Adriana is. I want to make it so people who are listening at whatever age or wherever they are in life, they can think about, if I made it all this way, if I made it in corporate America, if I'm making it now, or I'm trying to make it as an entrepreneur, so could you, right? So can you. We can make it whatever we are in life. So it's not about amplifying Adriana, it's about using me as an example of, we can make it, we can be whatever we want to be, right? But there is ways that and there's things that we need to do to get there. So being unstoppable, and talking about this, let's give it a little bit of a context. So I was born in Colombia, in South America. uh, i'm uh, I'm the only daughter. I got two brothers, so I'm the only female of three kids. My dad is an engineer. My mom, very proud to say, my mom is the first female marine zoologist in Colombia. She's 80 today. So the reason why I'm making this comment is because 80 years ago, it wasn't the norm for women to go to college. And those that did go to college didn't go to these kind of fields in their careers. And so my mom did. So I had these role models at home, and education was very important when we were growing up. So I decided to go into engineering like my father did. I had kind of like that father figure. And I knew I wanted to go into engineering, not because my dad was an engineer, but because I always had, that passion to understand how things worked. And so as I was growing up and going into high school, I had these universities that came and talked to us at school to tell us about the different careers that they offer. And we also had this field trip, and then we got to go to the place where my dad worked, and he was in the food production business at the time. And I got really fascinated to see how things were working and how all these ingredients and these products were all put together. And I got to see the final product. So I was fascinated by that. So then I understood that engineering was, I understood first what my passion was. And then that aligned then with the kind of career or education that aligned with that passion. And then I realized that engineering, industrial engineering was that. So that's how I came to realize. I had the opportunity to go to Canada as an exchange student. So we actually had a student from abroad from New Zealand that came to do a year abroad in Colombia. And I thought that was fascinating too. So I thought, I would love to have an opportunity like this girl to go and study in another country.
Yes.
So I talked to my parents and I said, once I graduate from high school, I want to go to another country and do a year abroad. My brother didn't do that. He didn't express that, something like he just didn't want to do that. So, but I did. So I went to Canada. I love that culture. I wanted to stay then and study engineering there. But my parents said, it's been a year. So you need to come back home after that. We have already registered you at this university. So I went back to Colombia after living in Canada for a year. But I already had, that living abroad, living in another culture, I already had that in me that I wanted to live abroad and I wanted to study abroad. So I found out at the university that they had a program to study abroad. I found out through someone else, someone that I knew, that his brother, who was studying engineering, had gone to Ohio for a semester. So then I talked to my mom and I said, Mom, you know what? I want to pursue this. I want to sign up for this program. And my mom said, well, find out what all the requirements are. Make sure that when you come back and talk to your dad, you have an answer for every single question that he had. Two reasons I found out later. One, I was very friendly. I was very social. So one, my dad didn't know whether I was going to be able to make it into engineering. That was the truth, because I was very social. And two, they thought, well, she wanted to make sure that this wasn't like the flavor of the month. But that was a very good lesson from my mom, because what she was telling me is, if you have a vision, you need to understand how you're going to get there. Have a plan and be focused about it, because anything else can become a distraction.
Yes.
So when you come and you present your plan, in this case was to my father, have everything in place. So make sure then that you sound real, you got all your facts in place, so you have credibility, right? Because by then I didn't have a lot of credibility. My dad didn't think that I was going to be able to make it. So that was lesson one. So when I came to him and I said, Dad, I want to do this. So he asked me all the requirements. I had every single answer. So he said, so what do you need from me? I said, well, I need a ticket for January, because I need your support, because I'm ready to go. So that's how I ended up here in the United States. And the first deal was I was only supposed to come for one semester. But once I actually landed at the University of Missouri, I'm like, there's no way back. I mean, I landed at the place where I knew I wanted to be. And I said, I'm going to do everything in my power and my hands to finish my career here. My goal was actually not to stay and live in the US, but I wanted to finish my studies here in the US, and I did. So that to me is being unstoppable, right?
Oh, without a doubt. And I don't want you to go in too further into the story, because I know we're gonna kind of transition into that. So let's talk about your second word.
Yeah. So the second one I think is unconventional. And the reason why I selected this one is because I'm really willing to challenge the traditional path and explore innovative solutions. It means also that I really think outside the box, and I like to embrace like different perspectives, and I think that because I do that, I encourage those around me to approach problems in a different way. So to me, this, being unconventional also means that there is a value of creativity in leadership and allowing others to bring those ideas to the table. You and I were talking earlier about, being unconventional, but also embracing these diverse perspectives are so important.
Yes.
And it's very sad to me to hear what's going on currently with the administration, thinking that diversity, equity, and inclusion is not important. And so that's a different topic of conversation. But
I do feel that we when we sort of get into your journey as an engineer and your amazing work within Boeing, and then to your uh, uh, transitioning from Boeing and starting your own consulting company. So I do want to make sure that that we for sure get into that topic, because it's crucial to talk about it. I think hearing from your perspective of regardless of what the administration is doing and what companies are deciding to do or not to do, I don't think that needs to affect true unconventional leadership.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
So we talked about how, I didn't think I was going to stay here in the US. So the reality is that once I graduated from college, I got a call from McDonnell Douglas, now Boeing, to come and work for them. So at the time, McDonnell Douglas had their headquarters in Missouri, and I graduated from the university. So they look for local talent. And so I had the chance to stay. And I tell you, what a wonderful career I had. Why unconventional? People ask me all the time, so how was to be a Latina working in manufacturing? And I said, I wasn't considered a minority because I was a Latina.
Mm-hmm.
I was unconventional because I was a female aerospace engineer working in manufacturing in the 90s. It had nothing to do with me being Latina or, whatever ethnicity. It's the fact that I was a female engineer working on the defense side of the house in manufacturing, and I was 21. So for
you only made it, Adriana, I want to ask you about that point. I think that's brilliant. So and was that how you felt about it? Meaning you were young, 21, working for this amazing, super well-known company. And so for you, did you feel that the female part was more of the unconventional and the Latino part was just the added bonus to you, but no one else really cared?
Yeah, see, corporate America, even at that time, was not talking even diversity.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
The concept of diversity didn't come until like the early 2000s.
Yes,
so it had nothing to do with that. We didn't even have affinity groups back then, not in the 90s. So I was the youngest of my team, and I was the only female. But again, I grew up with men because, so also remember I talked about being the only female in my household because I got the two brothers. My dad only has one brother, and my uncle had two boys. So I was very used to, you know, coming to my grandma's house, my grandparents' house, and being the only girl. So the I grew up being around men. My
Mm-hmm.
cousins were all men. So, and then when I was going to college, I got two of my really good girlfriends, and then the rest were all men. So I grew up with surrounded by men. So it
Mm-hmm.
didn't feel different because that's what I was used to. I normalized that environment for me. To me, that was my normal, right? So the important thing here is I had a mentor. I was an assigned mentor. It was a lady who was in a leadership position, and she was in manufacturing. But then I also had another mentor who was a senior vice president. Um, she is a woman of color, and she was, you know, the highest ranking female, and happened to be a person of color and a woman of color. And she's my advisor today. But anyway, so that was the unconventional piece of it, right? Why was this important having that mentor? And this is important for, I think, as part of the leadership too, because I think she asked me early. So, and also early in my career, I was identified um, what we call high potentials, right? And so I was identified very early as a high potential. Um, so I was put on this track for leadership. And when I sat down with my mentor, her name is Norma Clayton. I remember that she helped me with this track, and she helped me by asking me to identify a leader that I admire. And we actually looked at his career track. And I said, so where do you want to be? I said, well, I want to be a vice president. So she said, well, let's take a look at the career path of this vice president. And that showed me that he had moved places, sites, and functions, which made me realize then that if I wanted to become a vice president, then I needed to be mobile, and I needed then to work different functions to understand then the different aspects of the organization, and I needed also to be responsible for P&L. So not just
Adriana,
being
I
in the,
wanted to ask you a question with that
yeah,
because for you to say that you wanted to be vice president at that time, A, you were young, B, a female, and you're also working in, at that time, probably a boys' club, conservative, cultural company. And I think that's really powerful that one, I think it speaks to the unstoppable and the unconventional because to have you say that and be so determined and unstoppable about it, saying, I want to make it to this level and not have your mentor, regardless of her background and her ethnicity, not to discourage you and say, are you serious? Look at where we are. Where do you think that's ever gonna happen? And that to me is an amazing story in itself.
I think it's because I was never looked at differently. I think because I was a female or
Mhm.
Latina, like I said, we were not talking Latino or whatever in at that time. I was given an opportunity
But
to
Adrian, let
go
me
to,
ask you that. Let me ask you this though: it may not have been talked about, but there. Would you agree that there's still a lot of unspoken, even today? There's a lot
yeah.
of unspoken of why certain people, certain groups will be held back for advancement.
Oh,
And
I agree with that. I agree with that. So that's why I think having
mhm,
um, allies not only mentors, but more importantly, the allies. And
Mhm.
and she was one of those. And not only females, I think you need to have, just as we're talking diversity, I think that those allies need to be men and women, right?
Absolutely agree.
And
Absolutely
you
agree.
also need to deliver. So meaning that,
Yes.
you can have those allies, but I have that responsibility. So I took my master's. That's actually how I met Norma. We didn't meet at Boeing. We took our master. I met her in a classroom because so once I got hired, the company actually paid for your education. And I thought, well, my dad is probably happy now that I'm off his payroll. So I went back in and I started doing my MBA, and that's how I met her. I met Norma doing the MBA, and we both realized that, oh, she's the senior vice president that just moved, to work at McDonnell Douglas, and so that's how we met each other. Um, so I'm saying all of this because I was then working full time during the day, and then I was going to school at night. Right. So while people my age were probably, partying, I was going to school. Um, so you have to stay focused on what is that you want to do, right? Um, then she helped me with that vision. Where is that you want to be, 20 years from now? So what is that you need to start working on today? And so she saw that determination too. So she put me on that plan. So she was in that position where, you start creating these succession plans, you start identifying high potentials. So then you put your name down when you're doing people plans, right? But then my responsibility then was to deliver. Why am I saying this? Because there was a time when I got selected for my first managerial position, and I was only 28 years old. And my manager at the time, he knew then that I was going to be promoted. And he shared this with me, not to put anyone under the bus, but because I was going to be promoted and eventually then I was going to start evaluating other people. He shared this with me. His name is Bob. Bob said, Adriana, one of my colleagues made this comment when he found out that I was going to be promoted to leadership. He said, I guess you have to be a young chick on this group to get promoted.
Mm.
And Bob said, had nothing to do again with me being Latina, is I was the youngest, right? And I'm
Yes.
the female in the group. And Bob said, by then, that year, I had been in Arizona for 10 months and we had totally disrupted and converted the way that we were manufacturing or producing an aircraft there. And because of that success, we actually ended up getting a follow-on contract on the T-38.
Oh,
As a
wow.
result of that, I then went into the Czech Republic and had my first international assignment. And we rocked it. And it was the first time, by the way. So I went with one of my other mentors. We went together to the Czech Republic. The Czech Republic had only been independent for not even a decade. You don't have women working manufacturing. And now you have two women coming and working manufacturing and teaching mechanics how to do things on the shop floor. So you didn't have women in management. You didn't have women in manufacturing, right? So think about the cultural shock. But yet, we rocked in the Czech Republic. So anyway, so when I came back to the US, I got a promotion. So this person said, my colleague during his performance evaluation made the comment. So I guess you have to be a young chick on this team to get an opportunity for promotion.
What was your thought with how that was phrased to you?
Yeah. So Bob said, well, let me tell you what the young chick did for us this year, right?
Yeah.
So results. So what Bob told me then was, don't let those things get under your skin.
Mhm.
Because usually those comments will come from the people that don't perform. those who perform don't care, because they know that if you perform, then you're good. The opportunity is going to come. So then when I talked to my mentor, and she also told me that, so this is Bob talking to me. This is the men telling me, men are factual, they're not emotional. So he said, Adriana, you're going to come across, because eventually you're going to have people as the manager making those kind of comments. So stay with the facts. Data speaks by itself. What the female mentor told me then was, be careful too, because as you continue moving up, there is jealousy.
Oh, yes. Very much so.
So it's going to happen. Don't think it's not going to happen. It is going to happen. So don't let those things, steal your thunder. Stay very focused.
Adriana, let me ask you this. Would this be a good transition for you to talk about your last unword?
Yes.
Because I think it would also say a lot about you in kind of this part of your journey. And you and I share this unword, and it is unapologetic.
Yeah. So I think that, I believe in owning your unique perspective and the qualities that set you apart. I think I was actually apologetic at the beginning when I was younger.
Yeah, I was too. I didn't clearly understand the difference. So I understand.
Right. And as I think that as I mature with age, with experience, I don't apologize for being myself anymore, or for striving to create change, especially in those areas that matter to me. Right. So
and that's a really kind of and it's such a powerful place to be, I think, when you realize that true difference from being from apologizing or possibly and not of course putting words into your mouth, but feeling that you maybe need to be in a place because you don't want to make others feel uncomfortable. And so for me, I realized I needed to stop doing that to one for my own personal growth, and two for my own professional growth that I have very big dreams and aspirations about. So that's why I think that word from apologizing, and I think that's even more women tend to do that, uh, and transitioning into that unapologetic stage of our lives. And I am so happy that you chose that one, because I think we share a lot of commonality around that.
Yeah. Because to me, this world also represents self-confidence and authenticity. And I think when I was younger, I was in a position also, where, as I mentioned, I was many times the only female and the younger person on my team. And people refer to me, as cutie, pretty, sunshine. Or maybe she got in the position where she is, but because you see how cute she is. And I struggle with that. Because I thought, so how about all these years of education? I'm educated. I did my master's. I'm taking on this challenging roles. How about, these results? And that's why I wanted to take on these challenging positions. And yet people were looking at, I'm not saying I'm pretty, but people say, oh, the pretty face, oh, she's cute. Oh, blah. And it's like, I really struggle with that when I was younger.
Can you share something? Because I think that's so poignant, on how you coped with that, and how you handled that the more you started to transition into a more leadership role, did you find challenges that you had to cope with? The more leadership responsibilities that you had or were given?
I think those challenges were more apparent when I was in first level management
I
positions.
see.
Once I started um, getting higher levels, then I didn't see that
The
anymore.
respect was being provided to you.
Correct.
Understood. Well, I think that's a perfect transition because I asked you to sort of think about kind of a title topic that you wanted to share for the podcast. And I'm just going to say both of them were badass. And they were badass. And I loved them both. And the one that really stuck out to me, that I think really speaks to your journey, and even more now as you went over your unwords, and you came up with the unscripted journey leadership lessons from an unapologetic and unstoppable Latina in corporate America and beyond. That is such an impactful, strong statement. How did you feel when you came up with that?
Oh, liberated.
Because I was when I was reading, I was just like, I love this woman even more than I thought I possibly could. Please share more about that because if there is, I hope that people take that title to heart in their own professional and personal journey. So you said liberated. Please continue from that.
Yeah. So, you started reading this bio, right? And so I don't want to sound ungrateful,
Mhm.
because the truth is I had a beautiful career, again, filled with opportunity, and there were challenges, but those challenges made me um, the person who I am today, because
Mhm.
I love challenges. You learn from them. Um, you get to the other side, then you get to prove yourself, right? And I love that. In my 20s and my 30s, I was very driven by career and results.
Yes.
My 40s, a little bit different, right? More about also giving, about opening the doors and paving the way for minorities, for Hispanic, for my community, for girls, for women.
Mhm.
I understand now that my calling is really being an example and a role for women, for Latina. They can see me, and I can show them that there is a way that you can actually whatever dreams. But I try, in my case in particular, I want to be that role model and attract more women that want to be in the STEM careers. But at the same time, then you're holding that responsibility, because as
Yes.
a leader, you are the role model.
Correct.
So you have to behave, you have to uh, always be this role model and behave in certain ways, and even your family is holding up into that regard, highest regard. So I always felt that big responsibility on my shoulders, that I have to be this perfect person, the person that is excellent, the person that is always delivering, the person that is always helping, the person that is winning all these awards. That, it's like you are this role model. And so you're not allowed to fail in any way. So when I said liberated, is, once I made the decision that I wanted to leave out of corporate America, I was preparing for that day. Um,
Wow.
and when the moment came, for 3 years, I had been planning, like I knew exactly when I was eligible, and I was ready. But then I had this identity crisis in a moment, and I thought, so what is life after Boeing? What does that look like? Am I gonna
Adriana,
be?
can I stop you there for a moment?
Yeah,
I had a burning question that popped into
please.
my head, and tell me if I'm close to this. But you just, and I'm going to paraphrase what you just said. Um, but when you were talking about your awards that you've won, and the responsibility that you feel is on your shoulders as a Latina woman, and you being a role model for your community. Did you feel, I mean, everyone loves to win an award. So I'm sure you were excited to win those awards. But I feel that for each award that you won, yes, it was recognition for you, but I feel like with your leadership and who you are, that it was for your community mainly.
So one of my mentors once told me, because I was being nominated, and I'm like, no more. Like, let's nominate someone else. And I love it because she said, Adriana, stop. This is not about you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
These nominations and these awards is not about you. When we're elevating you, we're actually elevating your community. So
Absolutely.
that totally
Absolutely.
changed the perspective. So that's when I say
Did you feel that
liberated is
did you
because
feel did you feel that way, or
I do. I
did
do.
it need to be told to you?
So that's what I said, liberated, because
Uh,
it totally changed that chip, right?
wow.
And so that's now, I post that now, and I post it differently because now I do it in a different way, and it's not, hi, this is Adriana, I won this. It's like, hey, this is for me and my community. This is for, the girls out there. This is Adriana, and you can do this, right? I'm doing this to create awareness for you all, right? So
Yes.
it's different. It's different. So this is how you change the on from being negative to positive, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And this is how I can change the narrative, because I thought then, oh, all this greatness has always come me holding the hand of Boeing. So what's going to happen when I let that hand go and I go on my own?
Let's talk
And
about that. That's so poignant too, because there are uh many women. I released a podcast this month, and this woman is absolutely amazing, and she was in fact the breadwinner in her family. She finally got to that corner office, had everything in the world that, I mean, anyone would look at and be like, what, why did you give all that up? You retired. That's still just as impactful of a transition, because you've been so used to being in this corporate environment and now transitioning. And she herself, 20 plus years in the fashion industry, making it that any woman would be like, what? This is absolutely fantastic. Why are you giving this up? And she already, she talks beautifully of her story and what makes her so unconventionally excellent. And I think that's such a perfect segue into your story, because you did have such an amazing career. You did move up that corporate ladder and got to make so much impactful change, not only for the organization, but for yourself and your community. And now that hand is now separating. What was that like?
I'm not going to say it's been easy, because like I just said, I was so used to it, right?
Yes.
I mean, that marriage lasted longer than my personal marriage. So this, seriously, so this um, separation,
Yeah.
been harder,
Yeah.
separation, to be quite honest,
Sure.
because I felt that that union, uh, in my personal opinion, defined me for so long. I mean, you ask people, do you know Adriana Ocampo? And many people said, oh, Adriana Boeing? Yeah, I know Adriana. So my name and Boeing were like this.
Yes.
And so it was part of my
Yes.
identity.
Yes. A
So
huge part of
I
your
had to,
identity.
in many ways, so, but what I have been working, even with my coach, it's like, it's okay because you have to, in a way, let go, but it doesn't mean that is not part of your legacy, and is to actually use all those 30 years of experience and then to use it for what's next, what's life after Boeing, and it's actually leveraging all that experience. So it's not that forget about the 30 years of the past, is actually using all that experience with my consulting business and all that I did, and all that learning, and then put that into work now being a consultant.
Adriana, I'm happy you brought that up. I went through a very similar journey. I had an executive coach too that I worked with. And even though my business is executive coaching, I think it makes me a better high performance coach because before even rebranding my company and even thinking, oh my gosh, I'm starting a podcast that launched late last year, and it I would never have thought that I would be doing the type of work that myself and my company does around the executive coaching space and doing a podcast if I held on tightly to what I thought my past identity was. And it served me. That served me beautifully. And uh but it was time to let go of that part of my life so I could do something and see something of where there's greater purpose and a greater need for myself. And being able to have the courage and the strength to be able to do that, it's scary. And you mentioned that, and I appreciate you sharing, because now you're like, wow, I felt pretty secure over here, and now I'm going to do something that now is my full responsibility. And
Yeah.
what's that fun going to look like now? So yeah, that is wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that you yourself wanted to meet with an executive coach, because I find it to be so valuable when you're trying to move forward and to find some clarity in what your next chapter is going to
I
look
was
like.
just talking to a good friend of mine, a professional, last night, and I was telling her, what's interesting is that I was in charge of portfolio management and strategy at Boeing. And then the first thing that I did last year when I became the president of the DFW Hispanic 100 was to do a strategic planning. And yet, I hired someone to help me with my strategic planning for my new venture, because it's hard for me to do my own strategy because I'm so involved in this, in my new business. um, and yet, yeah, I've done executive coaching for others, but I'm so, this is so new to me that I'm finding very, very beneficial to have someone that is looking at what I'm trying to do and looking at it from the outside and
Yes.
giving me totally new light and guidance. And it's like, Adriana, don't go in that direction. That's like, why do you want to do that? That's
Yes.
not your sweet spot. Your experience is this. You're
Yes.
trying to do too many things. You need to focus on this. Everything else is a distraction. So I highly, highly recommend, regardless of what you do, and especially if you're trying to go in a different direction, get an executive coach. It's been very valuable to me, very valuable.
I wanted to ask you as well. You and I touched on this topic, and with you, one having your own business, your own consulting business, and came from Boeing. You and I touched on the topic of DEI uh, and how do you work in a space where our administration that has come in is trying to dismantle uh what it is. It's not like this is no matter what you do, this is not going anywhere. And how do you balance your leadership and the groups that you are so passionate about working with? What would you tell those leaders, and what do you tell yourself in moving forward? Because to me, I will always have this platform no matter what happens. And I will have people of all color, all race, all sexual orientation, anyone that has a purpose that benefits the good and the wonderful side of human beings. That's what my platform is always going to be about, and helping businesses do better and be better. And I wanted to kind of talk with you about that because people need to not listen to this noise and to focus on things that they can truly continue to make a difference about.
So love the topic. So there's three things that we're talking about here. So it's diversity, is equity, and is inclusion. When we're talking about,
and I would love from from a leadership perspective.
Yeah. So
too,
first,
please.
I think leaders need to be educated and understand what diversity, equity, and inclusion means. And there's three different aspects, first of all. And when we talk, so let's start with diversity. So there's different dimensions of diversity. First of all, you can have three white men and they all come from different backgrounds, different education, different functions, and there's diversity within that. So diversity doesn't mean ethnicity only, first of all.
Correct.
Hispanic is not an ethnia. Let's start with that too. You could be Black, Asian, white, and be Hispanic. That's another point. Hispanic is not an ethnia. Hispanic and Latino are two different things too. Immigrant is a different thing. I could be Hispanic and not an immigrant. There's many immigrants. I mean, immigrants are the what made this country. The only non-immigrants are the natives. Everyone else is an immigrant in this country. In America, whether it's North, Central, or South America, everyone else is an immigrant. Anyhow, so let's
no matter if you want to believe that or not, but that is true.
That is the truth. Everyone else came and colonized, and then there is a combination of all these different ethnicities that came and mixed with one another. All right, so that's that. I'm an immigrant. I wasn't born in North America. I was born in South America, and I came to this country to get an education. I'm probably higher. My level of education is probably higher than people that were born in this country, but I'm an American. I'm a US citizen, okay? And look at the contributions. I have a scholarship. I created a scholarship in this country to help with education of people in this country. So we need to look at this with a different lens. So if we also talk about inclusion, For instance, let's talk about the economy in this country and the contributions that the small businesses make in this country. The economy of this country is driven by the small businesses. I worked for 30 years for one of the largest, if not the largest, aerospace company in the world. Because I work on the defense side of the house, we need to understand that there is a requirement if you're a prime contractor, because these dollars, the contracts are funded with tax dollars, there is a requirement to subcontract a percentage of those dollars to small businesses, right? So there is inclusion there. So inclusion means that everyone should have an opportunity. There is place, there's, the pie is big enough that there's room for everyone to play. Inclusion means that, we should all be invited to the party. There should be opportunity for all of us. And we also know that diversity, when we got diverse ideas from men, women, all kind of different, depending where you all come from, then the solution is much better, even on the technology side of the house, right? When we included the mechanics, the different functions, people from different geographical areas, the solution is much better. Now, when we're talking about equity, so I'm a female and I'm performing the same work that my male counterpart. Why do I need to be paid less than my male counterpart when I'm performing the same statement of work? Why? Because of gender? BS.
Exactly.
Equity means I should be compensated the same as another person, regardless of gender. Simple.
So how do you within your business and with your leadership, how do you feel that you need to move forward in your business with what is going on in the environment and with the target and with the people that you want to work with?
Yeah. So one of the things that I learned, one of the areas that I supported when I was at Boeing was technology development.
Mm-hmm.
One of the programs that I led is called Small Business Innovation Research. This is a program that is led by the Small Business Administration. And what it is funds that are available for small businesses that want to develop technologies for the Department of Defense and different agencies under the Department of Defense and other agencies as well. But let's focus on Department of Energy, Department of Defense, there is NASA, etc. Why small businesses? Again, because they drive the economy of this country. So there is funds available, and for the commercialization piece, then the big primes, the big corporations will need to then help with the funding for the maturation of these technologies and then the incorporation of these technologies. The big challenge is the following. It's a little bit of a complex process, and a lot of these technologies are like halfway baked, and then the corporations then don't cooperate or don't provide the funding for the phase 3. And so there is a lot of money that the government spent, and then corporations don't invest in the commercialization. Another piece that I saw is that when we had to subcontract this portion of the work, also there is more specification in the contract that said, so X amount of this work that goes into the small businesses need to go to minority-owned and women-owned small businesses. Now, when we're talking about technology, it was hard in certain geopolitical areas to find Hispanic owned or women owned minority small businesses
Wow.
that could do that statement of work. That
Wow.
was my particular experience, right?
Yes.
Other minorities were able to do that statement of work. So now that I'm on the other side of the house, because I had that experience, I want to be able to, I know it's going to be hard for me. Let's say if you already have a business that is doing janitorial services, I'm not going to be able to come and then just change, your capability and then have you start creating technologies for the
Of
Department of
course.
Defense.
Of course.
However, if I start working with an incubator or with the chambers of commerce, and I start telling them about SBIR and the technologies that align with the roadmaps. And I know this is too technical, but I understand that arena because that's my expertise.
Mm-hmm.
And I start teaching the chambers of commerce or the women minority councils, and I start teaching them, and that's my goal. That's the purpose of my consulting. And I know how to connect them to partner with the big primes like Boeing. That's my calling, because I don't know, there's a lot of people out there that are doing this.
Oh
So
no,
that's
that
my
is
sweet spot.
beautiful. Yeah, I don't believe there are. That is a beautiful connection. I feel that that is so neat, and I do believe that that is your purpose.
That is my
That is
purpose,
absolutely
and that's why
that
the
is
name of my company, so it's Transcend, is Influence, and is Ascend. And it's also Tia, because I'm not a mom, but I'm a Tia. So Tia in Spanish means aunt. And this is what I'm here to do. I really want to help these small businesses to transcend to the next level, to be very influential, because they're going to help develop the technologies that are of interest to our government, to our country. So they're
yes,
going to help, and they're going to get to do that, and they're going to be able to grow and win contracts. So they're going to get to ascend to the next level. They're going to get to grow. So that's my purpose, because I saw a challenge in that area. And why not having the small businesses, the minority owned and the women owned small businesses, be the ones that are kicking butt and developing these technologies, for our government. There's a
absolutely.
lot
And
of opportunity, and there's
there's a
still.
ton of opportunity, and that's why I'm happy that you shared that, because there's as I said, a lot of noise that is not speaking the truth of what is currently happening. And I think what your company and you yourself are doing is so important and so needed. And I know this podcast is not the only thing you and I are going to be doing together. So, but I want to, we're getting close to wrap up time. And I like to give my guests an opportunity to ask me anything. If you feel there's something that you have left out, I want to be able to give you an opportunity to be able to say that. So I want to turn this moment and allow you to shine even more.
No, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being an unconventional leader yourself,
Thank you.
because creating this podcast alone and giving others, the platform to share their story, I think is important. Giving your viewers an opportunity to hear from others and say, I connect with this story. When you and I first met, we actually heard from others, and what you and I actually connected with was the fact that not everything out there is perfect. Not everything that we hear is the
Absolutely.
real truth. So we
That's
need to
correct.
have these real conversations, right? Show people the real path and have an opportunity to say things the way they are. And so I like that, because you're not afraid to deviate from the standard norm to get the message out. And you're not afraid to take these calculated risks. which I love.
Thank you. Thank you.
Because that's how
Thank
we
you very
grow.
much.
That's how we
Thank
grow.
you.
And yes, by taking this uncalculated risk to get out from the status quo, getting uncomfortable, being comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's how we get to the next level. And you're doing that yourself, being that role model and getting us uncomfortable and getting the word out. So thank you for allowing me to share my story as well.
Oh, absolutely. And that really means a lot to me because that was the purpose of why I came up with this podcast, because I felt I wanted to do exactly what you said, and I wanted other people to know that whatever your dream is and whatever you want to do, there are people there that can help and support you. And everything is not as perfect as what you're going to see, just like you said, but from a social media perspective, we think success comes instantaneously. Or if we see a CEO that's running a multi-billion dollar company, that's super easy, or someone that started their own business and now they're a multi-million dollar business and expanding, or they went through um, a merger and now they're even more successful than where they were. That is not an easy step or comes instantaneously, and but it doesn't mean you can't do it. And that's why showcasing unconventional leaders such as yourself, is as well as sharing my story, I feel that is my purpose.
No, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you also for promoting uh, leaders and women, and for creating this venue again for uplifting all these diverse voices and for allowing us and giving us this opportunity to share our journey. I think is very important.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you so much. Well, that wraps up today's episode of Unconversations. I'm your host, Dr. Alison Schmidt, and a huge thank you to Adriana for being on this podcast, being vulnerable, being unstoppable, and being a badass. And I will keep saying that because I think you are a badass and I think you are an amazing individual, and a leader that needs to be showcased. So thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for streaming the Unconversations podcast. Felt the unword effect? Subscribe, like, and comment to keep the Unconversations going. Catch the next episode where we unmute the truth and uncover the unexpected.